This billionaire married a humble gardener to reveal a shocking truth that changed everything. The headline screamed, sending shockwaves through the glossy world of Maplewood's affluent elite. John Whitaker, a self-made billionaire, had raised eyebrows when he promised to marry Lily Thompson, the devoted gardener of their charming town. In a life defined by numbers and profit, would this pairing reveal the cracks in his carefully curated facade? As John stood in the backyard of their quaint home, he surveyed the budding community garden they had sowed together. Neighbors often looked at them sideways, their laughter mingling with the scent of freshly tilled earth. For John, the whispers echoed painfully. He'd once reveled in the prestige of wealth. Now, it felt like shackles, each judgmental glance sharpening the distance from his family. Was he betraying them in pursuit of a love that felt as genuine as the soil beneath his fingernails? Lily, with her sun-kissed cheeks and hands rooted in dirt, radiated authenticity. She embodied everything his family scorned: simplicity. It made John's heart twist. He admired her lack of ambition for garish displays of wealth, but in the shadow of her convictions, doubts loomed larger. Was pursuing this path with Lily a rebellion against his family's values, or a sincere quest for belonging? Each night, he wrestled with his thoughts in an endless loop. The garden thrived over the weeks, colored with wildflowers and fresh vegetables, a true testament to their combined efforts. But then, while eagerly digging up a section of the plot, John's shovel struck something hard. An old photograph surfaced, peeling at the edges, a grainy image of his grandfather standing proudly in front of a sprawling piece of land. Alongside it lay documents that spoke of a legacy, an inheritance meant for the community. His heart raced, a tempest of uncertainty swirling within. Should he claim it as his own to fortify against his family's essential judgment? Or should he honor his grandfather's intent, passing it on for everyone to share? The thought of finally gaining acceptance from his estranged family vexed him, but it also made him feel sick. Beneath the allure of gaining their approval was the reality of moral decay. As John faced this moral card, an uncomfortable tension hung heavily in the air. Memories of family vacations, of laughter over barbecues, lingered like ghosts, haunting him even as he envisioned a future with Lily. She noticed his distraction, those moments where her eyes bore into him, asking without words, urging him to choose wisely. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Confiding in Lily filled his heart with warmth, yet the lingering shadow of his family's voice whispered like a haunting lullaby, a warning of loss and betrayal if he chose wrong. The pressure escalated. His breath became uneven, his stomach churned. What if accepting the land compelled him to cut ties with the only person who saw his soul? But then, like a bolt from the blue, Lily revealed her own connection. Her ancestors had once cultivated that very land, holding the community's heart within their clasp. This deeply intertwined revelation crashed into John's internal battle, setting afire the very core of his identity. Now, doubts clawed at him with renewed vigor. As whispers reached fever pitch, John stood at the crossroads. The legacy of his wealthy family and the love for his humble partner coiled around him, taut as a drum. How could he silence one voice without extinguishing the other? Just as clarity began to glimmer, his family arrived on the horizon, holding intentions of reclamation and judgment, preparing to confront him. Would he crumble beneath their expectations, or stand tall beside Lily, risking everything for what truly mattered? The storm of choices loomed, unyielding, as John faced his impending decision, teetering on the point of catastrophic change. The sight of his family's car, sleek and polished, snarled John's throat. Their arrival heralded confrontation, a clash of expectations and beliefs. He felt like a marionette caught in a whirlwind of strings, each voice urging him in a different direction. After so many years of built-up tension, the moment of reckoning was upon him. As they stepped out, his mother's expression was a carefully curated mask of polite disbelief, while his father's lifted brow conveyed disapproval sharper than any insult. John's heart raced as he recalled every instance of their scornful criticism regarding his choices, especially the decision to marry Lily. "John," his mother began, her voice dripping with the sweet venom of concern. "We need to talk. Do you really think this lifestyle, this relationship, is suitable for you?" Their words hung heavy in the air, and he could almost feel the surrounding garden wilt from the weight. Time slowed, stretching moments into an uncomfortable eternity. "What's wrong with this life, Mom?" he managed, his eyes darting to Lily, who stood beside him, grounding him in a storm of judgment. "This is real. It matters to me." His father intervened, cutting through the tension like a sharpened knife. "What matters, son, is our legacy. Your grandfather entrusted you with something greater than yourself. This land is an opportunity for greatness, not a gardening project." The confident assertion took root in John's mind, but also tugged at his heart. Wasn't this garden, with all its humble vegetables and vibrant flowers, the very essence of greatness, grounded in realities of community and care? Lily's presence exuded a quiet strength. Looking at her felt like sunlight filtering through heavy clouds. "We can do something profound with this," she urged softly, turning to him. "This land is for everyone, John. It speaks to unity, not division." Suddenly, the photograph he had unearthed flared in his mind, his grandfather's proud smile framed by flourishing crops, untouched by greed. Memories flooded back of community gatherings in their yard, the joy of shared labor and laughter echoing as they worked together. It struck him then. This was not merely a choice between family allegiance and romantic aspirations, but an intersection of his very values. "Don't you see?" John shot back at his parents, the conviction rising within him. "This land isn't an inherited title to be paraded. It's an opportunity for connection and growth. My identity doesn't solely belong to your expectations." Their shocked silence deepened the rift that had always existed between who they wanted him to be versus who he truly was. In his parents' disbelief, John felt a surge of freedom, igniting a flicker of hope. But with the dawning realization came a fresh wave of anxiety. What would they do if he turned his back on the monetary legacy they offered? Would it lead to irrevocable severance, or could he negotiate a path that honored both love and familial expectations? As John mulled this over, he recognized that accepting the community's vision meant sowing the seeds of a different legacy. Would he be brave enough to cultivate that garden, even if it risked alienating the very family that shaped his past? A resolute decision began to crystallize in his mind as he took a deep breath. His words, though still unformed, pulsed with raw determination. Just then, the quiet hum of a wasp buzzed past, an echo of nature's insistence that would not be ignored. The moment had arrived, and the words felt heavy on his tongue, filled with both fear and resolve. With Lily by his side, he faced his family, prepared to reveal the truth that lay not just in the land, but within his very soul. He had to take a stand. But would he find the courage, or would their expectations bury him beneath a legacy he never wanted? The air grew thick with unresolved tension, propelling him forward, a decision looming large on the horizon. The time had come to face his past while embracing the possibility of his future. The air crackled with anticipation as John met his parents' wide-eyed stares. The significance of the moment pressed down on him, a palpable weight of hope and dread mixed together. He felt every fiber of his being urging him to speak, yet a small voice inside him whispered caution. Would this decision draw him closer to authenticity, or push him further away from family ties. "Mom, Dad," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "What you say about legacy, it resonates with me. But your legacy seems anchored in profit, while mine is rooted in purpose. Those are fundamentally different principles." His parents exchanged glances, the unspoken dialogue between them sending chills down John's spine. Their disappointment was a tangible force, yet there was no turning back. He was standing on the precipice of self-discovery, ready to soar or plummet into the abyss of disapproval that awaited him. "What do you mean by purpose?" his father challenged, the icy demeanor sharpening his words. "What can come from plants and dirt that you can't achieve with ambition and hard work? You have the chance to rise, John. Don't throw that away." "I'm not throwing anything away," John countered, the fiery conviction igniting his passion. "I'm choosing a different path, one that honors what really matters to me." The words flowed more easily now, fueled by a sense of clarity that had gradually emerged from the chaos within. "This garden, our community, they represent something profound. They're about nurturing, connection, not just power." His mother, arms crossed defiantly, leaned in as if to catch him in a trap. "You think playing in the dirt can bring you happiness? You've sacrificed your future for this?" Her gesture included Lily, who stood unwavering at John's side. John's heart surged. He steeled himself in the face of his mother's disbelief. "Lily is my partner in this vision. Together we're building something meaningful, a sanctuary for people to come together and share, not just products, but experiences. We're cultivating lives, not just profits." At that moment, he glanced at Lily, whose steady gaze filled him with courage. The warmth in her expression urged him to continue, to delve deeper into the emotional roots of his choices. A long silence enveloped the scene, leaving a vacuum where words could not reach. John could feel his parents' skepticism like an impending storm, dark clouds ready to rain down disappointment. Yet somewhere within, a flicker of hope glimmered as he contemplated his next steps. "All this time I've felt torn between what you want for me and what I want for myself," he confessed. "But I can't keep stifling my truth for the sake of a legacy I don't want any part of. I have to value my own passions, my own happiness. I owe that to myself and to Lily." With every word, John shed layers of his previous self, the obedient son, the one who sought to please his parents at the cost of his aspirations. Instead, he embraced the growing realization of who he could be, even if that path meant struggling against the current of familial expectations. His mother's lips pressed into a thin line, her disapproval resonating in the silence that followed. It was clear that this conversation could not end amiably, yet in that tension, John felt an exhilarating rush. He was finally breaking free from the constraints of his inherited identity. The thought came as a rush, thrilling yet terrifying. He was shaping a legacy of his own. "Whether or not you accept my choices, I will pursue my dream. This garden is not just land. It's a testament to everything I believe in. And if you can't understand that, then perhaps it's time to reevaluate what our connection truly means." As his words echoed in the air, John felt a mix of triumph and trepidation, ready to confront whatever fallout might ensue from this decision. He had stepped into the unknown, a territory ripe with possibility, yet fraught with potential pain. How far would this newfound strength take him? As his family's responses swirled like a tempest in his mind, John braced for the storm that was about to break. Choices lay ahead that could alter the very fabric of his existence, but he felt unshackled, determined to forge his own path. What would his next step be? Could he navigate the rocky terrain of familial fallout while embracing the life he wanted to create? The moment stretched into silence, heavy with unspoken words. John's heart beat loud in his chest while he watched his parents process his declaration. Their expressions mirrored a collision of hurt and anger, as if he had called into question their very existence. An emotional wave crashed over him, mixing regret with the intoxicating rush of liberation. "I need to think," his father finally said, his tone clipped. Clenching his fists against the oak table, John caught the tremor in his father's voice, recognizing the fragility buried beneath the irritation. The dismissal struck harder than intended, igniting a spark of defiance in John. Thinking isn't enough, he countered, his voice steadying into something resolute. It's about choice, an active one. The world's built on choices. Why can't my choice be respected? His mother stood rigid, still processing the extreme jolt of John's rebellion. You speak of passion, but can you live off it? She questioned, a hint of desperation weaving through her disdain. You're friends with their startups. They'll take their ambition and run ahead of you. This garden won't pay the bills. Maybe not yet, John replied. But it will enrich lives. It'll teach people about growth, about sustenance. He leaned forward, inching closer to his parents, brimming with the conviction that had been nurtured in the soil they deemed insignificant. While wealth can fade, the experiences we're creating, those will last. Lily's supportive presence at his side offered him strength he had not anticipated. Her silent belief in him blinked brightly across the tension-filled space. With each second that ticked, John felt the warmth withdraw between his parents, a sliver of awareness that perhaps they had planted seeds of doubt in him for long enough. Why not? John pressed, tilting his head to meet their eyes with honesty. Why do I have to conform to a legacy that I never chose? Can't you understand how overpowering that burden feels? His father's frown deepened, lines forming in his forehead that spoke volumes. John wondered if the shadow of disappointment morphed the man he had known as a stronghold of confidence into someone afraid of change. He wanted to shake his father, to reel him back to an understanding that ambition need not be solely intertwined with profit margins. But as the silence trickled towards a conclusion, John realized that his relationship with his parents may never return to what it had been. With that sage realization came fear, a terror rooted deep within that they may decide to sever ties with who he was becoming. John, his mother finally spoke, her voice cracking. This isn't just about you. We have raised you to understand the value of success. We worry you might lose yourself to some fleeting dream. Perhaps, John replied cautiously, but perhaps I could also find myself in ways that you never expect. His thoughts danced back to the lessons he had learned while planting and nurturing seedlings. Like a young plant's struggle through soil before it could bloom, he felt he too was in the midst of his own struggle. As this revelation settled in his chest, John made a conscious decision to embrace whatever lay ahead. With every pulse of fear came a counterpulse of hope. He was ready to transform vulnerability into strength. I will plant my garden, not just for myself, but to prove that purpose can thrive in a world driven by profit. The intensity of his resolve hung in the air like a freshly watered earth. John turned towards Lily again, and together they represented a fusion of mutual hope and ambition, a beacon amidst the familial storm. Just as he took a deep breath, steeling himself for the path ahead, a thought ignited in him. This was not just about his aspirations. This was a confrontation with a centuries-old ideology. How far would he navigate the battlefield of legacy? In that moment, fragmented pieces of his own identity began to fit into place, yet an impending decision loomed. He had to choose whether to retreat or to take a stand against the currents attempting to drown him. As John's heart raced, a new whisper echoed inside him. Something was shifting, unraveling the fabric of his reality. The taste of potential freedom filled his mouth, but at what cost? Would the price of self-discovery come with irrevocable consequences for those he held dear? The challenge was laid before him. Either he would blossom into the man he dreamed to be, or risk losing everything to maintain a hollow semblance of family connection. The stakes felt higher than ever, as clarity pierced through his uncertainty. What would it mean to confront his parents yet again in the pursuit of his truth? The air in the kitchen grew thick with unspoken tension as John braced for the fallout of his declaration. His parents remained silent, trading glances that carried untold stories of disappointment and sorrow. He could see his mother's lips tremble, holding back the tears that pooled in her eyes, while his father's resolute posture betrayed his crumbling facade. "Do you remember when you were a boy?" his mother said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We took you to that little farm outside town. You loved getting your hands dirty, planting seeds. But you grew up, John. You knew that gardens don't pay the rent." Wasn't that the crux of the matter? John's heart twisted in reflection. That farm had been a fleeting playground, a symbol of innocence. But the lesson didn't end with soil and sunshine. It had morphed into something far more profound. "Mom," he began, trying to anchor his voice through the swell of emotions. "I've spent years imitating a life that was never mine. Chasing grades, awards. What did it ever mean to me? All those accomplishments felt like stones tied to my ankles, dragging me away from who I really am. What you see as a garden is my chance to break free." His father's scoff interrupted him. "You think a dream can replace a career? One day you'll wake up and realize the truth. It takes money to survive. Why can't you see that?" There it was, the familiar refrain. Money as the ultimate measure of worth. John realized he had a new determination burgeoning within him, fueled by a desire to redefine success that extended beyond the tangible. "Maybe," he answered firmly, "but while I gather experience in that garden, I'll learn lessons you won't find in a business school." With every exchange, the divide between his longing and their skepticism widened. While they remained anchored in tradition, John felt an exhilarating pull toward uncharted waters. Each word exchanged fortified his resolve, sharpening his elevation from a frightened boy to a budding man ready to carve out his dreams. "Is love enough?" he asked, the question hanging heavy in the air like an uninvited guest. Lily, sitting quietly nearby, caught his eye, her presence radiating strength. She had come to understand what John felt, an unyielding desire to chase dreams even if it meant creation through chaos. Yet, he feared the cost of this pursuit, the impending confrontation that loomed. Would this decision propel him outward, or leave him marooned on a hostile shoreline? "I need your support," John continued, feeling the electricity in his veins build with every beat. "In the business world, relationships matter as much as profits. I want to build a space where people can connect with the earth, and with each other. But I can't do it alone." His mother's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You want financial independence, but passion can't pay bills." "Yes," he admitted, "but passion fuels purpose. In pursuing the garden, I'm not only chasing a dream, I'm cultivating connections with others, valuing what's intangible. I want to facilitate community, to inspire change, to nurture hope." Silence swallowed his words, as he let the weight of his emotions settle like clouds heavy before a storm. Were they starting to see a glimpse of his vision? "Maybe I am scared," he confessed, the tightness in his chest easing slightly. "Scared of disappointing you, yes, but mostly scared of never trying, of being tethered to a legacy that fears the very essence of exploration." Time hung in the balance as they absorbed his words. It was a fragile moment, a seed planted in rocky soil. He sensed not only fear, but also curiosity flickering in his father's narrowed gaze. "The world is shifting, Dad. Maybe it's time we rethink success," he urged quietly, his heart racing as he confronted the crucible of heritage and expectation. "It's time to grow." As John stepped back, both from the table and into his truth, an unquenchable hope flickered within him. He didn't have all the answers, only a roadmap to potential. Would they follow him down this path, or would their history entrap them within the walls of a legacy? A faint smile played at the edges of his mother's lips. For the first time, he sensed a willingness to see him, not merely as their son, but as a man ready to brave uncharted territory. But the real challenge loomed ahead. Would they ultimately accept this evolution, or would John's drive for self-discovery serve only to fracture their bond? The days that followed felt transformative yet turbulent, each moment imbued with the weight of possibility. John immersed himself in planning his garden project, sketching layouts on paper and envisioning succulent vegetables and vibrant flowers sprouting where once lay only cracked earth. The thrill was exhilarating, yet the shadows of doubt loomed nearby, whispering his parents' cautionary tales of financial security. Despite his excitement, John wrestled with a sense of isolation. Every interaction felt charged, as if he walked on a tightrope suspended between self-affirmation and ancestral expectations. Each time he faced his parents, their silence expressed a skepticism that felt sharper than any spoken criticism. John pondered how to navigate the churning waters of familial relationships while pursuing his dreams. Yet within his turmoil lay a growing conviction. How could he justify this path without their support? Lily remained his steadfast ally and confidant, their conversations blooming into rich exchanges that blossomed amid their contrasting perspectives. "You know," she said one afternoon, brushing dirt from her hands as they surveyed the neglected patch of land that would soon be his garden. "Sometimes the hardest part is choosing to believe in yourself when others don't." Her unwavering support ignited something within John, an ember that burned through his self-doubt. "But how do I build something real when every instinct tells me I'm a fool?" he challenged. The thought of failure gnawed at him, a relentless reminder of the risks ahead. "Every garden needs nurturing, John. You're the gardener. You decide what to plant and how to tend it. Growth requires patience and resilience," she affirmed, her eyes sparkling with a fierceness he craved for himself. The fire inside him ignited further. Maybe she was right. Perhaps it was time to cultivate not just the soil, but his own resolve. With each passing day, he took small steps forward, reflecting on the lessons he'd learned while planting seeds as a young boy. The act had never been solely about the blooms. It was about patience, commitment, and hope. If he could approach his business with the same fervor, might that not blossom into something more substantial than mere survival? John also sought out mentorship from local organic farmers, learning techniques that transformed more than just crops. The community welcomed him, and he was struck by the wisdom shared by those who embraced a life grounded in passion rather than simply profits. Each chat unspooled another thread of self-doubt, slowly knitting a tapestry of confidence. However, even as he shaped his newfound growth, a disquiet settled in his core like a stubborn weed. He sensed his parents' continued resistance spiraling like an undercurrent beneath the surface. The fear of disappointment loomed larger every time he saw their expressions shift to worry or sorrow. Was he not only questioning his career but risking the very relationships he cherished? When the opportunity for a small local grant emerged, John decided to apply. It was a chance to acquire the resources he needed to build the garden and potentially prove to his parents that passion could indeed translate into something viable. Yet, the application process required one pivotal question. What will your project contribute to the community? His pulse quickened at the pressure of needing to articulate his vision. This moment felt critical, a reflection of everything he had come to believe regarding purpose and worth. For hours, he wrestled with the answer. Was he hoping for financial gain, or seeking to cultivate deeper connections with people? Their trust? Their belief? As he typed his final answer, his heart raced. This garden is more than a space for plants. It's a sanctuary that offers a slower rhythm of life, creating connections to the earth and each other. Finishing the application felt simultaneously freeing and terrifying. Would they see his vision? Might his parents understand this journey of self-discovery was not only about him, but about nurturing something greater? Submitting the application marked not merely the beginning of a new venture. It symbolized his commitment to carving out a new legacy shaped by his own ideals. As he pressed send, he stood on the precipice of uncertainty, the excitement of possibilities mingling with the apprehension of familial reconciliation. Little did he know, those answers would lead to new challenges that would test not only his resolve, but the foundation of his relationships. Would the grant pave the way towards acceptance and understanding, or cultivate deeper rifts? The moment of truth loomed closer, and with it, the realization. John's journey was unfolding in all its messy complexity, an evolution that would change everything. Days slipped by, each one hanging heavy with the weight of expectation and the looming decision regarding the grant. John often found himself staring out at the patch of land that utterly transformed his inner world. As he walked through the freshly turned soil, he couldn't shake off the closer he moved toward creation, the heavier the doubts wrapped around his chest. Yet in the solitude of his thoughts, a flicker of determination began to take root. John realized that cultivating a garden required more than just digging and planting. It demanded an equal commitment to self-cultivation. Lily's words echoed in his mind, a mantra that urged him to lean into the discomfort rather than shrink away from it. During one of their conversations, she posed a question that lingered with him. "What's the fear that drives you, John?" Her unabashed curiosity challenged him to confront his lingering doubts and encapsulated the heart of his struggle. Was it the fear of failure? Perhaps it was rooted in nothing less than the fear of rejecting his family's expectations, risking the acceptance that had always felt conditional. Shifting his focus, John poured his energy into developing a detailed plan for the garden. He researched sustainable practices, attended workshops on crop rotation, and began reaching out to potential volunteers. Each interaction with seasoned farmers deepened his understanding and gradually transformed a mere idea into a budding reality. However, the thrill was often punctured by the growing chasm between him and his parents. Their disinterest in his passion gnawed at him, a constant reminder that emotional success was as essential as professional achievements. At one poignant dinner, the tension was palpable as he attempted to weave his passion into the conversation. "I've been working on a project that I really believe could help the community, and it aligns perfectly with my values," he ventured, hoping for an opening, a sliver of approval. But the response he got was a quiet blink, thick with skepticism. Their silence wasn't just a refusal to engage, it was a withdrawal from him, as if he were an entity outside their understanding. The sting of their dismissal awakened a burgeoning resolve within John. He needed to prove his vision, not just to them, but to himself. The grant application represented more than financial backing. It was a validation of his self-worth and intentions. Late nights became his sanctuary as he poured his heart into the grant's project proposal, detailing how he envisioned a community space that fostered resilience, connection, and grassroots empowerment. Yet, as he stitched together words, binding his hopes into a cohesive narrative, he grappled with a gnawing sense of isolation. The very act of creation was lonely, his fears cloaked in shadows, haunting him like memories of past failures. Each completed paragraph became a rebellious act against those internalized admonitions. Finally, the grant decision day approached, endlessly oscillating between anticipation and dread. John felt his pulse quicken each time he glanced at the calendar, each day a reminder of the risk he took in pursuing his dreams. He knew that acceptance might bridge the gap with his parents, but rejection could deepen their skepticism. As the looming announcement echoed in his mind, John faced an unsettling truth. He was not merely contesting the grant, he was confronting the very essence of what it meant to forge his identity against the currents of familial expectations. On the night before the decision, he sat alone by his window, unleashing the torrent of thoughts that had simmered within. "Am I ready to embrace this, regardless of the outcome?" he whispered into the darkness. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with uncertainty, yet underscored by a powerful sense of burgeoning self-belief. In that moment, clarity struck him. It wasn't just about proving his worth. It was about honoring who he was becoming. With renewed conviction, John made a choice. Tomorrow, whatever the result, he would embrace his path unapologetically. As morning broke, carrying the sun's golden promise, uncertainty blended with a profound resolve. The decision was more than just a step toward his professional goals. It was a pivotal moment in his personal journey. The moment of truth awaited, and John could feel the shift within. What had begun as a quest to plant seeds in the soil now blossomed into a conscious decision to save himself. And just as he felt that internal shift, he received a notification that sent him reeling. A simple message that could change everything. As John tapped the notification, his heart raced. The screen displayed the message. Your grant application has been reviewed and selected for the next phase. Hope fluttered, but then grounded itself with a heavy weight of responsibility. This was no longer just about him. It was about the promise he now made to the community. The gravity of the decision hit him. John immediately started strategizing how to navigate the next steps. Information flooded his mind, competing against a growing whirlwind of anxiety. He felt both electric with possibility and overwhelmed by pressure. He needed to take action, yet doubt tiptoed at the edges of his resolve. He dove back into research, this time not just searching for resources but for allies. It was time to rally support, to strengthen his network, not just to help with practicality, but to bolster his courage. John drafted emails to local businesses, community leaders, even influencers who shared sustainability values. As much as he needed community support, he required a psychological boost. The next day, he met with a seasoned agricultural expert named Michelle. The cafe buzzed around them, but John found solace in the focused intensity of their conversation. Michelle listened intently as he laid out his vision, her brow furrowing in thought. You've got a great idea, John. But the implementation is where most projects struggle. What's your plan for overcoming challenges? Financial discrepancies, volunteers flaking out, unanticipated weather? Her questions were pointed, and each one framed a new layer of the daunting reality ahead. I guess, his voice faltered. I hadn't thought of every angle. I thought if I just started, everything would fall into place. That's a common misconception, she said, leaning in. Planting seeds doesn't guarantee growth. You need to prepare the soil. Her words lingered with him long after their meeting, stirring a cocktail of fear and excitement. The garden was burgeoning, yes, but so was the reality of nurturing his ambitions beyond the initial spark. John realized that he wasn't merely building a project. He was laying foundations for his future. As he worked on refining his proposal, unearthing costs, and assessing potential setbacks, he began to record every encounter, every insight. Writing felt almost cathartic. It transformed his fear into concrete strategies. However, with each drafted line, he sensed the evolving expectations from his family. He could almost hear his parents echoing their doubts in his mind, amplifying the pressure he felt not only to succeed, but to make them proud in a way he never quite understood. Amidst this growing pressure, he stumbled upon a quote while researching leadership. In the face of adversity, true character reveals itself. It struck him with unexpected force. Was resilience, then, defined by the challenges we faced and how we met them? Maybe this journey was not just about proving himself to his parents, but about discovering who he was when life demanded he rise above. Navigating family expectations became a subplot to his greater narrative. He needed a plan for resilience, not merely an operational strategy for his garden, but a personal fortitude to weather disappointment, especially from those he longed for approval from the most. With decision day approaching for the next phase of the grant application, John faced the crux of his journey. He was teetering between fear and determination, each a potent motivator, but also a steep drop into uncertainty. As he refined his proposal into a robust plan, he felt a growing urge to confront his parents, to weave in his excitement alongside the fear they projected. The moment felt ripe, but weighed down by the worry of their reactions. Rejection, condescension, or worse, disappointment. Facing them summoned the specter of years spent trying to find approval in their eyes, rather than trusting his own judgment. Fueled by the conviction that this journey was as much about internal growth as external achievements, he found himself poised on the edge of revelation. He had to find a way to communicate his vision without folding into the familiar narrative of seeking acceptance. As the new day dawned, carrying both anticipation and dread, he prepared for the dinner that might change everything. Would he finally reveal the depth of his dreams, and assert his place in the world, or would he regress into old patterns of fear and avoidance? With a firm breath, he set his resolve. Tonight, he would speak not just of plans and proposals, but of the man he was becoming. The true test was ahead, both for his aspirations and for the relationships he held most dear. As John stepped into his parents' home, the familiar scent of spices and simmering sauce enveloped him like an old blanket. There was comfort in these walls, but tonight, that comfort felt like a double-edged sword. A cacophony of thoughts banged around in his head, each echoing his fears about how they would receive the news he was about to share. His heart raced, uncertainty coiling tightly around his resolve. His parents greeted him with smiles, momentarily easing his anxiety. The small talk flowed easily at first, laughter punctuating their conversation, but as he stared at the twinkling chandelier overhead, John felt a weight descend. The time had come to cut through the veneer of normalcy and confront the elephant in the room. "Mom, Dad," he began, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "I need to talk to you about something important." Their initial smiles faded into concerned frowns, an immediate reminder of the sharp disapproval he had always expected. "What's on your mind, son?" His father's tone was gruff, but John recognized the underlying concern. "I've been awarded a grant for a sustainable gardening project I proposed," John blurted out, watching their faces for a flicker of support, fighting the instinct to retract his words at the first sign of criticism. "What does that mean for your job?" His mother leaned forward, a frown etched in her brows, as if expecting the worst. "It means—" He paused, grappling with the pivotal moment unraveling in front of him. "It means I want to do this full-time. I want to create something meaningful, something that can impact our community." His mother opened her mouth, but his father interrupted, the weight of his voice dropping like a stone in the stillness of the room. "You mean you're giving up your career for this?" "Not giving up, Dad," John insisted, his voice steadier than he felt. "This is my career. It's what I want to invest in. I've been doing the research, planning everything. I can make this work." A tight knot formed in his stomach as he searched their expressions, bracing for the reaction that was bound to follow. "But John," his father tried again, a mixture of bewilderment and concern etched across his features. "Do you realize how much risk is involved? You have no experience in this field. Do you really think you'll succeed?" "Exactly," John countered. "Do we ever really know? Success isn't guaranteed in anything, but if I don't try, I'll never know if I could have made a difference." His voice rang with a fierceness that surprised even him. It felt empowering to voice his resolution, yet still, doubt nagged from the corners of his mind. Would they see the determination in his eyes as passion or folly? "This isn't just about you, son. It's also about your future," his mother cautioned. "You have to think of security. What if it doesn't work out?" At that moment, John felt the weight of their unyielding expectations press down on him. Each syllable felt like a chain, tying him to a path he was desperate to escape. Yet, there was an uncharacteristic resolve bubbling up from within him, urging him to articulate something raw and true. "Mom, this is not just a whim. I believe I can make it work. I don't want a life full of what-ifs. This is not only about fulfilling my dreams, but also facing my fears. I need your support, not skepticism." The energy in the room shifted, his declaration hanging in the air like a fragile promise. As silence enveloped them, John felt a thrum of anticipation mixed with dread. This was uncharted territory. He hoped to inspire confidence but also feared their disappointment, or worse, indifference. How they reacted now would carve his path forward. Just as he prepared for another reply from them, a sudden inspiration struck him. He'd spent so long pursuing external validation. Perhaps it was time to take the dysfunction and disapproval of family expectations and channel them into fortifying his purpose. Maybe this was the moment to reveal an entirely different facet of his creativity that thrived on resilience. The revelation simmered as they exchanged glances, each one a silent question in the space of that intimate yet daunting room. What if he could somehow craft a broader narrative around his journey? Could his experience speak not only to his parents, but resonate with others in similar situations? Look, John took a deep breath. If we could find a way to turn this venture into something that could truly be groundbreaking, not just for our family, but for people who feel trapped by former notions of success, wouldn't it be worth exploring together? Just like that, a new layer of his ambition emerged, intertwining his past with a broader vision. He could invent not only a path for himself, but perhaps even for others longing for authenticity within limitations. However, would that idea ignite hope, or merely cast him deeper into the flames of their skepticism? As he awaited their response, a tremor of uncertainty tinged with hope coursed through him. Dad, Mom, what do you think? Conversation hung heavy, anticipation crackling in the air as he awaited the decision that would define the next phase of not just his project, but of himself. The silence in the room felt like a weight pressing down upon John, each passing second intensifying the tension between him and his parents. Their expressions, a mix of disbelief and caution, reflected their struggle to reconcile who he had always been with the man he was courageously becoming. Yet, amidst that heavy silence, John found an unexpected strength surging within him. His father finally broke the silence, soundlessly weighing his words. You think you can turn this garden into something sustainable? What you're talking about, creating a shared community space, sounds idealistic, John. This isn't just about you following a passion. It's about responsibility. The tone was firm, but behind the sharp edge lay an undercurrent of something softer, a flicker of concern for the son he nearly recognized. John felt the spark of his resolve grow brighter. It is about responsibility, Dad. Just not in the way you think. We can build something that connects us, something that can foster growth, both for the earth and for people. This is my opportunity to create impact in a way that aligns not only with my skills, but also with my core values. The words were profound and laden with conviction. The thoughts of long-lost family gatherings in the garden, where connection was multidimensional and genuine, flourished like the flowers around him, resonated deep within. They symbolized community and shared effort, values he yearned to embody and offer back to both his family and the town. I want to prove that success doesn't just revolve around wealth, John continued, but around nurturing, sharing, and enhancing lives together. His mother's brow furrowed, trying to piece together what he was saying. But what if it fails? If you pour all your resources into this without a backup plan, won't that be devastating? Her apprehension was palpable, and John understood where it stemmed from. They wanted him to succeed based on a life built on tangible achievements, but he was attempting to craft a narrative of life that embraced everything intangible. I recognize the risks, Mom, but I've been constantly reminded of what truly fulfills me, and this project is about more than just me. It's about a legacy that others can be a part of. I need to explore my potential, even if that means stumbling along the way. The determination seated in his voice. He had made a choice to prioritize his values over traditional paths, and it felt liberating. His father shifted slightly in his chair, the gears clearly turning behind his eyes. But what happens if you take this chance, and it leads you away from our family's expectations? John took a deep breath, allowing the weight of that question to settle within him. Maybe, just maybe, it leads me toward the best version of myself. I want to show others that they can embrace their truth too. I want to ignite understanding, not just amongst you, but everyone who feels out of place. Lily was many things, his partner, his grounding force, and tonight, she had become his living proof of what it meant to embrace authenticity. He turned to her, seeking her approval, and found a firm gaze encouraging him toward his truth. With a newfound sense of certainty, he turned back to his parents. I'm not asking you to understand everything tonight. I want you to see that I'm doing this with purpose. I will make mistakes. I will stumble. but in that, there is growth. A heavy silence ensued, but this time, there was a shimmering possibility woven into the fabric of the air around them. John began to imagine a garden resilient not just in plants, but as a metaphor for personal growth. Finally, his mother spoke again, her voice tinged with a mixture of hurt and hope. If this is what you want, John, then maybe we need to reconsider how we define success. But you need to be prepared. This isn't just a dream. It's going to take hard work. Absolutely. John nodded, eyes shimmering with a resolve he never knew he possessed. And that's not just a promise to you. It's a commitment I'm making to myself and to everyone who believes in me. I want to redefine our understanding of legacy together, not as something we owe to our past, but as something we shape with our own values moving forward. The air thick with emotion shifted slightly, as if the walls could recognize the weight of the journey they had embarked on as a family. It was a reckoning in numerous ways, an acknowledgement of their differences and their shared ties in unconditional love, somehow glowing brighter than before. As the conversation waned, John's heart brimmed with hope. It was a beginning, not without risks, but filled with potential and purpose. Each step he took forward was placated with the assurance that he was no longer simply a marionette in the patterns of familial expectations. Through those discussions, John began transforming fragments of judgment into empathy, skepticism into support. This bond, though tested, started to stretch and grow, much like the garden he envisioned. As he left that evening, newfound clarity washed over him, and a sense of pride rooted itself deeply. He was not just stepping into a career. He was stepping into a lifestyle defined by authenticity and connection. He had achieved something monumental, not just in his endeavor but within himself. Now, he was determined to nurture not only the soil, but relationships as well. With every seed he planted, he would cultivate resilience, charting a course for something sustainable, to prove that purpose can thrive, enduring like the crops that would one day grow in that garden. In that moment, John felt ready to claim his identity boldly, navigating the ever-evolving landscape of success on his terms, demonstrating that sometimes the most significant legacy is the love we foster along the way. Now, this is your chance to take action, just like John. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread the word. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion about following one's dreams. Together, let's cultivate stories of inspiration and growth to empower every journey toward genuine fulfillment.